The message arrived on a Tuesday. It came not through regular channels, but appeared simultaneously on every screen across Earth. The strange symbols shifted and changed until they formed words in all human languages. Earth will stand trial before the Galactic Council in 7 days. Commander Jack Reeves was eating breakfast when his phone, television, and tablet all flashed the same message. Coffee spilled across his uniform as he jumped to his feet. Within minutes, his secure line rang. The president needed everyone at the White House immediately. Jack arrived to find the Situation Room packed. Military leaders, scientists, and government officials all spoke over each other. In the center sat Lisa Watkins, Earth's ambassador to the few alien species who had made contact with humanity over the past decades. "Quiet, please," the president called out. The room fell silent. "Ambassador Watkins, tell them what you told me." Lisa stood, her face grim. "The Galactic Council is real. We thought they were just stories told by the Arcturians, but they exist. They govern most of the known galaxy, 27 different civilizations working together. And they've been watching us for centuries." "Watching us?" Jack asked. "Why?" "To decide if we should join them," Lisa said, "or if we're too dangerous." The room erupted in questions again until the president slammed his hand on the table. Lisa continued, "They consider us unpredictable. Our wars, our damage to our own planet, our rapid technological growth. They're concerned." 1 week later, Jack found himself aboard an alien vessel alongside Lisa, traveling to a massive space station at the edge of our solar system. The structure hadn't been there 2 days ago. Now it hung in space, a gleaming ring 10 miles across. "Remember," Lisa whispered as they walked down the bright hallway, "show respect, but stand firm. We represent all of humanity today." The council chamber was enormous. Beings of all shapes and sizes sat in tiered rows surrounding a central platform. Some looked almost human, others were utterly alien. Crystalline structures, floating gas clouds contained in technical shells, beings made of what looked like pure light. A tall, blue-skinned humanoid with 4 arms approached them. "I am Coordinator Zenith, Earth representatives. The Council will hear your case now." For hours, the Council listed humanity's failings. They showed footage of wars, environmental destruction, cruelty, and violence. But they also showed human art, acts of kindness, scientific achievement, and courage. Jack listened, growing increasingly angry as these aliens judged his entire species. When allowed to speak, Lisa stepped forward. "We are young compared to your civilizations. We make mistakes. But we learn from them. We improve. We reach for the stars not to conquer, but to explore and understand." A ripple of communication passed through the council. Zenith's expression remained neutral. "The council acknowledges your potential," Zenith finally said. "However, the risk is too great. Earth has developed too quickly without the necessary ethical evolution. The council has voted. Earth and all its solar system will be isolated until you have demonstrated sufficient maturity." "Isolated?" Jack stepped forward. "What does that mean?" "A barrier will surround your solar system. No signals or ships will pass through. You will have at least 1,000 years to reflect and grow before reconsideration." "You can't do this," Jack shouted. "You can't just cut us off from the rest of the galaxy." "The decision is final," Zenith said. "The barrier will activate in 24 Earth hours." As Jack and Lisa were escorted back to their transport, Lisa grabbed Jack's arm. "This isn't the end," she whispered. "This is just the beginning. They've made a mistake." "What mistake?" Jack asked, watching the alien civilizations that had just sentenced humanity to isolation. "They think they're punishing us," Lisa said with a slight smile. "But they just challenged us. And there's nothing humans do better than overcome challenges." The blue light of the barrier shimmered across Earth's skies the next day. To the rest of the galaxy, humanity had been contained. To humanity, the clock had started ticking. 20 years passed since the barrier went up. The blue glow in the night sky became normal for a generation who knew nothing else. Children born after the exile learned about the galaxy beyond as bedtime stories, while the adults worked to secure humanity's future. Dr. Alan Morgan stared at the data on his screen, rubbing his tired eyes. The underground facility in Colorado housed Project Threshold, a secret government effort to understand the barrier technology. 50 of Earth's best minds worked here day and night. Another failure, Alan muttered as the test results came in. This was the 8th attempt this month to create a small hole in the barrier. Even a temporary opening would be a breakthrough. The door slid open, and Catherine Hayes walked in. The former Space Marine now led Earth's unified defense force. Her uniform was crisp, her expression serious as always. "Any progress?" she asked, looking at the screens. Alan shook his head. "The barrier absorbs or reflects everything we throw at it. It's like trying to punch through a wall that isn't there." Catherine placed a folder on his desk. "The president wants an update next week. The people need hope, Alan. What about your side? Any new ships ready?" Catherine allowed herself a small smile. "We just finished the third fleet, 100 ships that would have been impossible before the exile." This was the irony of their situation. Cut off from the stars, humanity had turned inward and made incredible progress. Solar power efficiency doubled. Fusion energy became stable. Medicine advanced rapidly. With the common goal of reaching the stars again, old conflicts faded away. Nations pooled resources instead of fighting over them. "Sometimes I wonder if the Council did us a favor," Catherine said quietly. "United us in a way nothing else could." "A favor we'll repay someday," Alan replied. Later that evening, Alan walked through the living quarters where the scientist's family stayed. Children played in the common area, laughing and running. Among them was Karen Mitchell, a 12-year-old girl building something complicated with magnetic blocks. "What's that, Karen?" Alan asked, kneeling beside her. "It's a phase variation model," she said without looking up. "I think the barrier isn't solid. It's a pattern. If we match the pattern but opposite, we could cancel it out." Alan stared at the child. Karen was the daughter of 2 engineers on his team. She often visited the labs and absorbed everything she saw. Her understanding of complex physics was remarkable. "Show me," Alan said. Karen rearranged the blocks, explaining her theory in simple terms even as the concepts behind it were revolutionary. Alan listened, his excitement growing. This child might have seen what all the adults missed. The next morning, Alan gathered his team and presented Karen's idea. They worked for weeks to develop it into a formal theory, with Karen joining them after school each day. 3 months later, they achieved their first success, a temporary window through the barrier, just large enough to send a signal. It lasted only seconds, but it proved Karen's theory correct. President Daniel Ward visited the facility personally when he heard the news. "How soon until we can send something through?" he asked, looking at the barrier model in the main lab. "A small probe, maybe a year," Alan answered. "A ship with people, longer. And they won't detect it." "No, Karen's approach doesn't break the barrier. It slips between its patterns, like walking between raindrops." The president looked at Karen, who stood quietly beside her parents. "What do you think we'll find out there after 20 years? Karen thought for a moment. "I think they forgot about us. And that's their mistake." Outside the facility, beyond the mountains, humanity built and prepared. New cities rose with technology the Council worlds would not recognize. Ships trained for missions no human had undertaken before. In isolation, humanity did not wither. It grew stronger, more resourceful, more determined. The exile meant to contain them had instead focused them. And the barrier was beginning to crack. Year 2098 marked 23 years of exile. In the underground facility, Dr. Alan Morgan's hair had turned completely gray. The years of work had worn on him, but today his eyes shone with excitement as he watched the team prepare for their biggest test yet. Karen Mitchell was no longer a child, but a brilliant young woman of 23. She stood beside a machine that took up half the laboratory. checking final calculations on her tablet. "Are we ready?" Ellen asked. Karen nodded. "The phase drive is stable. If it works, we'll create a corridor through the barrier large enough for the test drone." The room fell silent as Karen activated the system. The machine hummed to life, energy building as lights flashed across its control panels. On the main screen, they could see the small drone positioned at the edge of Earth's atmosphere, right before the barrier. "Phase alignment at 85%, Karen announced. 90%, 95. Alignment complete." A beam of energy shot from Earth to the drone's location. On the screen, they watched as what looked like a tunnel opened in the blue wall of the barrier. "Send the drone," Alan ordered. The drone moved forward, approaching the opening. For a moment, it seemed to hesitate at the edge, then slipped through. The room erupted in cheers as the data stream continued. The drone was sending back information from beyond the barrier. "We did it," Karen whispered, tears in her eyes. Alan put his hand on her shoulder. "No, you did it." The drone stayed beyond the barrier for 30 minutes before they brought it back through another phase corridor. The data it collected was precious. Their first look at the galaxy in over 2 decades. President Ward called an emergency meeting with world leaders the next day. Alan and Karen presented their findings to a room of stunned officials. "The phase drive doesn't just allow us to pass through the barrier," Karen explained. "It creates shortcuts through space itself. We can potentially travel faster and farther than even before the exile." "What have you seen out there?" asked the leader of the European Alliance. Alan showed the first images. The nearest star systems appear unchanged. But we detected unusual energy readings from deeper in the sector. Something's happening out there. "How soon until we can send a crewed ship?" President Ward asked. 3 months, Karen answered. "We've been building a prototype in secret. The venture is small but can carry a crew of 6. The room grew quiet as everyone considered the implications. "If we do this," the Chinese premier said slowly, "we risk anchoring the council again." "The council exiled us without giving us a fair chance," President Ward replied. "We have a right to know what's happening in our galaxy." After hours of debate, they'd reached a decision. Earth would send the venture beyond the barrier, but secretly. The mission would be exploratory only, observe and return without making contact. Captain Greg Sullivan was chosen to lead the mission. The former astronaut had been training crews on the new space vessels built during the exile. He selected 5 crew members, each experts in their fields. The day of the launch, Alan and Karen watched from the control room as the venture rose from its hidden base beneath the Atlantic Ocean. "Opening phase corridor," Karen said, her fingers moving across the controls. The ship approached the barrier, its new drive glowing as it activated. The blue wall of energy parted, creating a tunnel just big enough for the venture to pass through. "Good luck," Alan whispered as the ship slipped beyond Earth's prison. For 6 tense days, they waited. The phase corridor technology allowed brief communications, but the ship needed to return to share its full findings. On the 7th day, the barrier opened again. The venture returned, but its crew looked shaken. Captain Sullivan's first words as he stepped into the control room chilled everyone present. "The galaxy is at war," he said. And no one saw it coming. Captain Greg Sullivan stood before the world's leaders, his face grim as he shared what the venture had discovered beyond the barrier. The room was silent except for his voice and the soft hum of the projector showing images from their mission. "We visited 3 star systems before returning," Greg explained. "The first was empty, just as we remembered it. But the second, Proxima Centauri, was in ruins. The screen showed a once beautiful colony world, now with massive impact craters and cities reduced to rubble. No movement, no life signs. The third system was under attack when we arrived," Greg continued. He touched his control pad, and the image changed to show strange ships firing on a space station. The ships were unlike anything humans had seen before. Dark, with shapes that seemed to shift and change as they moved. "We call them Void Harbingers," Greg said. That's what the survivors call them. Survivors. President Ward leaned forward. You made contact. Greg nodded. We had no choice. We rescued 23 people from an escape pod. They're members of the Arcturian species, one of the council races. Their colony was being destroyed, just like Proxima Centauri. The door opened, and a tall, slender being with pale blue skin and large eyes entered. The alien looked around nervously at the human leaders. This is Zenith, Greg said. Not the same Zenith who judged Earth. This one is a scientist who was studying stellar phenomena when the attack came. Zenith stepped forward. The Council. They did not prepare for this threat. They believed all danger came from within known space. The alien's voice was musical, but filled with sadness. 7 major worlds have fallen already. Many more colonies. The harbingers come from the space between galaxies. No one was watching that direction. President Ward stood. How long has this been happening? The first attack was 18 of your Earth years ago, Zenith answered. 5 years after your isolation began. The room filled with angry whispers. For 18 years, as Earth struggled behind the barrier, the galaxy had been under attack. What about the barrier technology? Asked the African Union president. Can't the Council use it to protect their worlds? Zenith shook his head. The technology requires tremendous energy and can only cover small regions of space. Your solar system is uniquely compact, and the Council needed all ships and resources for fighting. Dr. Alan Morgan, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. What exactly are these harbingers? Are they a species we can communicate with? No one knows, Zenith replied. They do not respond to signals. They do not take prisoners. They simply destroy and move on. Karen Mitchell, sitting beside Alan, had been studying the images of the Harbinger ships. Their propulsion system, she said suddenly. It's similar to our phase drive concept, but crude, inefficient. Greg nodded. That's what gave us an advantage. The Venture could move faster, hide better. That's how we rescued the survivors and escaped undetected. President Ward walked to the window, looking up at the barrier that still surrounded Earth's solar system. After a long moment, he turned back to the room. We have a decision to make, he said. For 23 years, we focused on one goal, breaking free from our exile. Now we've done it, only to find the galaxy in chaos. The Council abandoned us, the European leader pointed out. They left us behind a barrier while they fought a war. Why should we help them now? Zenith looked down. You are right to be angry. The Council was wrong about humans. We see that now. Greg stood straighter. With respect, Madam President, I've seen what's out there. These harbingers won't stop with Council worlds. If they succeed, Earth will eventually face them alone. The room fell silent again as everyone considered this truth. We need more information, President Ward finally said. Captain Sullivan, prepare the Venture for another mission. This time, go deeper. Find out everything you can about these harbingers and the state of the Council worlds. Greg saluted. Yes, sir. As the meeting ended, Karen approached Greg. I want to come with you, she said. I need to see their technology up close. Greg studied her face, seeing determination in her eyes. It will be dangerous. Karen smiled slightly. Everything worthwhile is. 2 years passed after the Venture's first mission beyond the barrier. Earth now operated a fleet of 10 phase ships, each equipped with Karen's improved drive technology. They moved secretly through the stars, observing, gathering information, and occasionally rescuing survivors from attacked worlds. In a hidden base on Mars, Captain Greg Sullivan and Karen Mitchell stood before a 3-dimensional map of known space. Red markers showed worlds already destroyed by the Void Harbingers. Yellow showed worlds under current attack. The map was heavily marked with both colors. They've destroyed 7 major Council worlds now, Greg said, pointing to the largest red markers, and 34 colony planets. Karen nodded grimly. Their pattern is becoming clear. They're working their way inward, targeting production worlds first, then military bases, then population centers. The doors slid open, and an aide rushed in. "Captain, we just received an emergency transmission. It came through all frequencies, even breaking through our secure channels." "Play it," Greg ordered. The main screen lit up, showing an alien with green-gold skin and 4 eyes. Greg recognized the species as Tellarites, one of the founding members of the Galactic Council. "This is High Counselor Vox of the Galactic Council," the alien said, its voice translated by their computers. "I send this message to all worlds. The Harbinger forces have breached our inner defense line. The capital world of Centauri Prime has fallen. We call upon all species, all worlds with any military capability to aid in the defense of the remaining Council worlds." The message continued, listing coordinates for gathering points and emergency protocols. But what caught everyone's attention was the final statement. "To the people of Earth," Vox said, looking directly at the camera, "we acknowledge our error in judgment. The barrier around your system will be deactivated if you still survive within it. Your isolation was a mistake. We ask for your forgiveness and your help in this darkest hour." The message ended, leaving the room in stunned silence. "They don't know," Karen said quietly. "They don't know we've been beyond the barrier for 2 years. And they don't know what we've built during our exile," Greg added. An hour later, in the White House Situation Room, President Laura Martinez met with her advisors. Ambassador Lisa Watkins, now in her 70s but still sharp-minded, sat beside her. "The Council is desperate," Lisa said after watching the message. "I never thought I'd see them admit they were wrong." "Can they actually lower the barrier?" President Martinez asked. Dr. Alan Morgan, his hair now completely white, nodded. "Yes, but it doesn't matter. We can come and go as we please with our phase technology, which is far superior to what they had when they exiled us. The question isn't can we respond," General Frank Dixon said, "but should we? These are the same people who locked us away and forgot about us." Lisa Watkins shook her head. "They didn't forget. They were fighting for their lives while we were safe behind the barrier they created. The exile that was meant to punish us may have saved us from the first Harbinger attacks." The room grew quiet as everyone considered this perspective. President Martinez stood and walked to the window. Outside, the blue shimmer of the barrier was visible in the evening sky. "I've read the reports from all our missions," she said. "I've seen the footage of destroyed worlds, of refugees fleeing the Harbingers. If we do nothing, eventually all the Council worlds will fall, and then the Harbingers will come for us." She turned back to face her advisors. "But we won't face them alone like the Council worlds did. We'll face them together." "What are you suggesting, Madam President?" General Dixon asked. "It's time to reveal ourselves," President Martinez said firmly. "Not just one ship or a small team. We send the full Earth Defense Fleet. We show the Council and the Harbingers exactly what humanity has become during our exile." Lisa Watkins smiled. "They thought they were containing a dangerous species. Instead, they were giving us time to grow stronger than they could imagine." "Send a message to the Council," the President ordered. "Tell them Earth is coming. And we're bringing our own ships." The Earth Defense Fleet gathered at the edge of the solar system. 100 ships of various sizes formed a massive formation just inside the barrier. General Frank Dixon stood on the bridge of the flagship, the EDS Defiant, watching as the final ships took their positions. "All ships report ready, sir," his communications officer said. Frank nodded. "Send the signal to Dr. Morgan." In the control center on Earth, Dr. Alan Morgan and Karen Mitchell monitored the fleet's status. When they received the general's message, Karen activated a special version of the phase drive system. Instead of creating a small corridor through the barrier, this one would make an opening large enough for the entire fleet to pass through at once. "Opening main phase corridor in 3, 2, 1, Karen said, pressing the final command. The barrier before the fleet rippled and then split wide open. Stars became visible beyond the blue energy wall that had contained Earth for 25 years. All ships move forward, General Dixon ordered. Maintain formation and prepare to engage phase drives once clear of the barrier. The fleet moved as one, passing through the massive opening. Once beyond the barrier, each ship activated its phase drive, disappearing in flashes of light as they jumped toward the coordinates provided in the Council's message. At a battle-scared space station orbiting what was once a beautiful garden world, Council forces fought desperately against a Harbinger attack. 30 Council ships of various designs formed a defensive line that was quickly falling apart. The Harbinger's black ships cut through their formation with ease. "We cannot hold position much longer," a Tellarate captain reported to High Counselor Vox, who watched the battle from the station's command center. "We must hold," Vox insisted. "The evacuation is not complete." Suddenly, every sensor on the station lit up with new contacts. Space seemed to fold in on itself as 100 ships appeared behind the Harbinger fleet. "What is that?" Vox asked, staring at the display. "Are they Harbinger reinforcements?" The communications officer looked up in shock. "We're receiving a transmission. It claims to be from Earth." "Put it through," Vox ordered. General Dixon's face appeared on the main screen. "This is General Frank Dixon of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received your message, Counselor. Sorry we're late to the party." Vox could hardly believe what he was seeing. "Earth? How did you?" "The barrier. We solved that problem a long time ago," Dixon replied with a slight smile. "Now stand by. We'll handle these Harbingers." The Earth fleet moved with precision that stunned the Council observers. Their phase drives allowed them to jump in and out of normal space, appearing behind Harbinger ships, firing, and disappearing before the enemy could respond. Human targeting systems, honed by centuries of unfortunate warfare experience, proved devastatingly accurate. Human shield technology, developed during the Exile, withstood attacks that had been destroying Council ships with ease. In 20 minutes, the Harbinger attack force was in disarray. In 40 minutes, half their ships were destroyed or disabled. The remaining Harbinger vessels retreated, jumping away to safety. On the Council station, silence reigned as everyone watched the Earth fleet take up defensive positions around them. General Dixon's ship docked with the station. He walked into the command center with Captain Greg Sullivan and Karen Mitchell beside him. High Counselor Vox approached them slowly. "How is this possible? Your world was contained. Your technology was primitive compared to Council standards." "You gave us a challenge," Karen said simply. "Humans are very good at overcoming challenges. And you came to help us," Vox said. "After what we did to your people." Dixon's expression hardened slightly. "We didn't come to help you, Counselor. We came to save the galaxy." "There's a difference." Vox bowed his head. "Whatever your reasons, you have saved many lives today." "This was just one battle," Greg pointed out. "The Harbingers have many more ships, and they're attacking on multiple fronts." "Then we must coordinate our forces," Vox said. "Will Earth join the Council defense strategy?" Dixon exchanged looks with his companions before answering. "No, Counselor. Earth won't join your strategy. You'll join ours. Your defensive approach is failing. It's time to take the fight to the enemy." Vox looked shocked, but as he glanced at the Earth ships visible through the viewport, he slowly nodded. Perhaps you are right. What do you propose?" "First," Dixon said, "we need to understand exactly what we're fighting, and we have some ideas about that." 1 month after Earth forces joined the war, Dr. Olivia Russell stood in a large laboratory aboard the science vessel EDS Discovery. Around her, a team of human scientists worked alongside aliens from 6 different Council species. They were studying a damaged Harbinger ship captured during a recent battle. Olivia moved closer to examine a strange biological component they had removed from the ship's control system. It pulsed slightly, even though it had been disconnected for days. "Have you made any progress?" Commander Ben Harper asked as he entered the lab. The military officer had been assigned to oversee the research team. I think we have, Olivia replied, but you're not going to like what we found. She led Ben to a separate room where digital screens displayed their findings. The Harbinger ships aren't just machines. They're partly alive. This tissue sample has artificial and organic components mixed together. Ben frowned. Are you saying the ships themselves are the aliens? Not exactly, Olivia said. She pulled up an image showing DNA-like structures. The biological components were engineered, created in a lab. There's no natural evolution here. They're bioweapons, Ben realized. But who made them? Before Olivia could answer, an alarm sounded. They rushed back to the main lab where one of the alien scientists, a crystal-based being named Chlor, was backing away from the specimen. It's activating, Chlor warned. It's sending a signal. Security teams rushed in as the biological component began to glow. Olivia quickly sealed it in a containment field. I need to speak with Earth Command and the Council immediately, she said to Ben. I know what the Harbingers are now. 2 hours later, on the Council's emergency command station, General Dixon, Karen Mitchell, and representatives from a dozen Council species gathered around a conference table. Olivia's face appeared on the main screen. The Void Harbingers aren't a natural species, she explained. They're weapons created by another civilization. The biological components in their ships contain genetic markers from an ancient species known in Council records as the predecessors. High Counselor Vox looked troubled. The predecessors, but they disappeared 12,000 years ago. They didn't disappear, Olivia continued. According to your own historical archives, they were exiled by an early version of the Galactic Council. Sound familiar? The room fell silent as everyone understood the implications. The predecessors were deemed too dangerous, too aggressive, Olivia said. So the early council used the first version of the barrier technology to isolate their home system. But unlike humans, they had centuries to plan their revenge. They created the Harbingers as their instruments of vengeance, programmed them to attack after a set time, and then apparently destroy themselves. So we're fighting ghosts, General Dixon said grimly. A revenge plan set in motion thousands of years ago. Karen had been quiet, but now she spoke up. If the Harbingers are programmed weapons, not a true species making decisions, that explains their attack patterns. They're following algorithms, not strategy. There must be a control hub, Ben suggested, something directing all Harbinger ships. Olivia nodded. We think there is. The signal that the component tried to send was aimed at coordinates in the space between our galaxy and the next. Based on the signal strength, we believe there's a massive production and control facility there. Then that's our target, General Dixon said firmly. We need to assemble a strike force. Vox looked skeptical. The void between galaxies is vast and largely unmapped. How would we even find this facility? We can track the signal, Karen said. I can modify our phase drives to follow the communication pathways the Harbingers use. Commander Ben Harper stood straighter. I volunteer to lead the mission. General Dixon studied the man for a moment before nodding. Assemble your team, Commander. Choose the best from both Earth and Council forces. This is the pattern, Vox said quietly, almost to himself. The Council exiles those it fears, only to need their help later against an even greater threat. Maybe that's a pattern worth breaking, Dixon replied. As the meeting ended, Ben approached Karen. I'll need your expertise on this mission. Will you come? Karen smiled. Try and stop me. I've got a few ideas about how to shut down their entire network at once. They looked at the star map, showing the vast empty space where the facility was hidden. The greatest threat to the galaxy had been created by those who had been cast out. Now those who had almost suffered the same fate were the galaxy's best hope for survival. 6 Earth ships and 4 Council vessels moved through the darkness between galaxies. They traveled in phase space, using the modified drives Karen had designed specifically for this mission. Commander Ben Harper sat in the captain's chair of the lead ship, The EDS horizon. How much farther? He asked Karen, who monitored the signal tracking equipment at her station. We're close, she replied. Signal strength is increasing rapidly. The small fleet dropped out of phase space, and everyone on the bridge gasped. Before them floated an enormous structure unlike anything they had seen before. It was shaped like a giant wheel with spokes extending from a central hub. Each spoke ended in what looked like a shipyard, producing harbinger vessels. That's why they seemed endless, Ben whispered. They'd been building ships for thousands of years. Karen's instruments beeped urgently. They've detected us. Harbinger ships are launching. The fleet scattered as hundreds of enemy vessels poured from the facility. The battle began immediately, with phase jumps and energy weapons lighting up the darkness between galaxies. We need to reach the central hub, Karen said. That's where the control systems must be. Ben nodded grimly. All ships provide cover for the horizon. We're going in. The Allied vessels formed a protective formation around the horizon, taking heavy fire as they pushed toward the center of the massive facility. 2 Council ships exploded, but the remaining vessels continued forward. The horizon reached the central hub, docking forcefully against its outer wall. Ben led a boarding team, including Karen and specialists from both Earth and Council forces. Inside, they found no living creatures, only automated systems and more biomechanical components similar to those in the Harbinger ships. They fought their way through security drones to reach the central control chamber. Karen rushed to the main console. This is it, the primary control system. While the team defended their position against waves of security drones, Karen worked to understand the ancient technology. Her hands flew across the alien controls, applying everything she had learned from studying the captured Harbinger components. I can disable the control signal, she said, but it won't stop the ships already built. They have enough autonomy to continue fighting. What about the production systems? Ben asked, firing his weapon at another approaching drone. Karen's eyes lit up. Yes, I can reprogram the facility. Instead of creating more harbingers, I can make it send out a shutdown signal. Do it, Ben ordered as an explosion rocked the chamber. Karen worked frantically, entering complex commands into the alien system. The entire facility began to vibrate as its purpose shifted. It's done, she finally said. The signal is broadcasting. Throughout the battle outside, Harbinger ships suddenly went dark, drifting powerless in space. In distant parts of the galaxy, the same thing happened as the shutdown command reached all Harbinger forces. The team made their way back to the horizon, racing against time as the facility began to break apart, its ancient systems overloading from the changes Karen had made. As their fleet jumped to safety, the massive structure exploded behind them, ending the threat that had terrorized the galaxy for decades. 3 months later, representatives from all Council worlds and Earth gathered on neutral ground, a newly terraformed moon orbiting Jupiter. The grand meeting hall was filled with beings of all shapes and forms as Sam Collins, Earth's newly elected representative, addressed the assembly. Today marks a new beginning, Sam said. The old council made a mistake in exiling Earth. But that mistake led to humanity developing technologies and strategies that ultimately saved the galaxy. He held up a document. The Solar Accords recognize that diversity of thought and approach makes us stronger, not weaker. No species should be exiled for being different. Instead, we should learn from each other. High Counselor Vox stepped forward. The Council accepts these accords. Earth has earned not just a place among the galactic community, but a leading role. As the document was signed by representatives of all worlds, Lisa Watkins, now serving as an advisor to Sam, smiled from her seat in the audience. They wanted to contain us, she whispered to Jack Reeves, the now retired commander who had stood with her 25 years ago when Earth was exiled. Instead, they gave us the time and motivation to become something greater. Jack nodded. Their big mistake became everyone's salvation. Outside the hall, Earth ships and Council vessels flew together in formation, a symbol of the new unity. The barrier that once imprisoned Earth was gone forever, replaced by bridges between worlds and species across the stars.